they found a way in. Something we missed.
We didn't miss anything.
Aliens wasn't just a sequel, it was a 26-year-old Canadian director walking into a Pinewood Studios full of British crew who didn't respect him, filming a Vietnam War allegory on a decommissioned power station and delivering one of the greatest action films ever made, despite everything that tried to stop him. Today, we're counting down 14 weird facts about aliens. Stick around for number 1, because Cameron's farewell speech to the British crew on the final day was one of the most savage exit lines in Hollywood history. Fact 14, Cameron wrote the pitch with a $sign. When James Cameron walked into his pitch meeting with 20th Century Fox, he wrote one word on a whiteboard, aliens. Then he changed the S to a $sign, alien dollars. The gesture was brazen and deliberate. Cameron's way of announcing up front that he intended to make money, not art, and that he knew exactly what kind of film he was going to deliver. He had been approached after Fox read his scripts for The Terminator and Rambo, First Blood Part 2. The producers had told him their only instruction, Ripley and soldiers. Cameron retreated into self-imposed seclusion, emerged with a treatment, and walked into that meeting already knowing what he wanted to make. The $sign was not a joke, it was a declaration. Aliens grossed $183 million worldwide on an $18.5 million budget. Cameron had written his pitch on the whiteboard, and the whiteboard turned out to be right. Fact 13, the entire film was a Vietnam War allegory. Cameron wrote Aliens with the Vietnam War as his structural template. The core idea was simple and devastating. A technologically superior force, sent into a foreign environment they don't understand, gets destroyed by an enemy that owns the terrain. The colonial Marines have pulse rifles, smart guns, and dropships. They lose anyway. The concept art brief Cameron sent to his design team included explicit instructions to incorporate Vietnam War imagery. The dropship was designed as a hybrid of an F-4 Phantom II and an AH-1 Cobra attack helicopter. The Marines wore jungle green clothing. Sergeant Apone chewed cigars like a combat veteran. The parallel was not subtle and was not meant to be. A sci-fi action sequel set in space was being designed from the ground up as a meditation on American military hubris. Cameron put it on another planet so audiences would sit through the argument without knowing they were hearing it. Fact 12, Fox tried to write Ripley out. Cameron refused. When Sigourney Weaver's contract negotiations stalled, Fox executives approached Cameron with a suggestion: write Ripley out of the film, produce a treatment that didn't include her, just in case the deal fell through. Cameron refused. He told the studio plainly that the Alien franchise was all about Ripley and that a film without her was not a film he was interested in making. His refusal handed Weaver's agent enormous leverage. The negotiations concluded with Weaver receiving $1 million, 30 times what she had been paid for the original Alien, on which she had earned $35,000. She also negotiated a percentage of the profits. Weaver's performance in the finished film earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, the first time an action role had generated a nomination for a female performer. Fox had tried to remove her. Cameron's refusal turned the negotiation into one of the best deals of her career. Fact 11, Weaver's conditions included no guns, a romance, and her own death. When Sigourney Weaver finally agreed to return, she arrived with conditions that gave the production serious pause. She didn't want guns in the film, a position rooted in her personal views on gun control that directly conflicted with the premise of a film about soldiers fighting aliens with pulse rifles. She wanted Ripley to have a romantic relationship with the alien, and she wanted her character to die. Cameron addressed each condition in turn. He explained that removing the guns from an action film about colonial Marines was structurally impossible. He rerouted the romantic element into the maternal bond between Ripley and Newt, which Weaver ultimately responded to more strongly, and he kept Ripley alive. Not every demand survived the negotiation intact, but Weaver's willingness to push for what she wanted shaped the character, particularly the maternal instinct that Cameron built into the script, which gave the film its emotional engine. Fact 10, the original Hicks was fired after a drug arrest and a shotgun incident. Michael Biehn was not the first actor to play Corporal Hicks. James Remar was cast in the role and had been filming for approximately a week when he was arrested for drug possession. He was fired. The timing of Remar's departure coincided with another incident on set. A shotgun Remar had been carrying discharged and blasted a hole in a nearby soundstage wall. Frank Oz was filming Little Shop of Horrors on the other side. Nobody was hurt. Remar left the production. Cameron called Michael Biehn, who was in Paris at the time, and had him flown in immediately to reshoot Remar's scenes. The transition wasn't seamless. A few shots in the alien nest sequence show Hicks from behind, and that's Remar in the helmet. He preserved because the footage was too expensive to reshoot. The most recognizable Marine in the film was not the one who started the job. Fact 9, the British crew didn't respect Cameron. The tea breaks almost sank the film production at Pinewood Studios in England was a sustained culture clash from day one. The British crew were experienced veterans who had worked under Ridley Scott, a British director they respected enormously. Cameron was a 26-year-old Canadian. The Terminator hadn't been released in the UK yet, so nobody on that crew knew what he had done. They held regular tea breaks, a standard British working practice. Cameron found this incompatible with his shooting schedule and reportedly smashed a tea cart in frustration. Several crew members walked off after an argument between Cameron and director of photography Dick Bush, who refused to light scenes the way Cameron wanted and told him outright that the schedule was impossible. Cameron fired Bush and replaced him with Adrian Biddle. The crew that remained did so with varying degrees of enthusiasm. The standoff between Cameron's intensity and British professional tradition ran the entire 10-month shoot. Fact 8, Carrie Henn got the role by not smiling. Approximately 500 children auditioned for the role of Newt. Most of them had commercial acting experience which turned out to be exactly the wrong preparation. Commercial child actors had been trained to smile at the end of every line, a habit designed for product pitches that read as completely false in a film about alien-infested survival. Carrie Henn had no acting experience whatsoever. She was a military kid living in England whose father was stationed nearby. She read the lines, finished the scene, and didn't smile. That was it. Cameron cast her. Henn later said that acting in Aliens was the easiest thing she'd done because she was just playing. Her performance, feral, convincing, completely unself-conscious, is one of the film's most essential elements. She never appeared in another film. Newt was her only professional performance and remains one of the most natural child performances in science fiction cinema. Fact 7, the Queen was built with a garbage bag. First, the Alien Queen, 14 feet tall, controlled by 16 people, requiring hydraulics, wires, and 2 performers inside the suit, began as 2 puppeteers and a crude skeleton covered in black trash bags. Cameron and Stan Winston needed to establish whether the basic concept of a giant practical queen was viable before committing to months of expensive construction. The garbage bag test was simple. 2 people controlled the crude frame. While Cameron watched the movement, the test worked. Winston's team spent months building the finished queen, which was operated by a combination of 16 puppeteers, hydraulic systems, and wire rigging. Every full-body shot of the queen was captured entirely in camera with no visual effects added in post-production. The most terrifying creature in the film was tested with materials from a kitchen cupboard and then built into one of the most complex practical effects ever put on screen. Fact 6, the Marines were trained by the SAS, but 3 cast members were excluded. The actors playing Colonial Marines underwent 2 weeks of intensive military training with the Special Air Service, the British Special Forces unit, learning weapons handling, formation drills, and how to move and operate as a platoon. Cameron wanted the camaraderie to be real enough that it would read on screen without explanation. 3 cast members were deliberately excluded from the training: Sigourney Weaver, Paul Reiser, and William Hope, who played Lieutenant Gorman. All 3 played characters who were outsiders to the Marine unit in the script. By keeping them separate during preparation, Cameron ensured that the tension between Ripley, Burke, Gorman, and the Marines would have an authentic foundation. The soldiers had bonded together over 2 weeks. The civilians hadn't. The camera caught the difference every time they shared the frame. Fact 5, the Marine introduction scene was filmed last. The scene where audiences first meet the Colonial Marines, waking from hypersleep, joking around, establishing the group dynamic that carries the film's emotional stakes, was filmed last. It appears near the beginning of the movie it was the final thing the cast shot together. Cameron's reasoning was specific. By the time they filmed the introduction scene, The actors had spent 14 weeks working together. Under extreme physical conditions, the camaraderie, the in-jokes, the physical ease of people who have genuinely spent months alongside each other, and none of that had to be manufactured because it was already real. A scene designed to make the audience immediately invest in a group of strangers worked because the people in it were no longer strangers to each other. Cameron got exactly the performance he wanted by waiting until the last possible moment to film the first scene. Fact 4, James Horner had 3 weeks to write the score and vowed never to work with Cameron again. James Horner was told he had 6 weeks to score Aliens. When Cameron finished recuts later than planned, Horner's deadline was cut to 3 weeks. He was given little notice. Some portions of the score were written overnight. To meet the schedule, Horner pulled from previous work, including his own Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan score, which is audible in the final film. Cameron then re-edited sequences after Horner had already scored them, forcing additional rewrites under the same impossible timeline. Horner later said tensions with Cameron were at fever pitch and that he considered it extremely unlikely they would ever work together again. Unused portions of his Alien score were repurposed for Die Hard 2 years later. Despite everything, Horner received an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Score. He and Cameron eventually reunited for Titanic in 1997, for which they won the Oscar together. Fact 3, Lance Henriksen was planning to quit acting if this didn't work. Lance Henriksen had spent years working as a character actor before Aliens, a journeyman career of supporting roles in underpowered projects that had never established him as anything more than a reliable presence. He had privately decided that if Bishop didn't open the right doors, he was done with acting. The character of Bishop, the android whose arc redeems the franchise's entire history of sinister artificial humans, fit Henriksen with such precision that it became the defining performance of his career. Companies reportedly called 20th Century Fox after the film's release, hoping to procure working power loaders, having mistaken the practical effect for real industrial equipment. Henriksen's quiet, specific work as Bishop was inseparable from the film's emotional resolution. He kept acting. He has since appeared in hundreds of films and television productions. Bishop was the last chance role that lasted a career. Fact 2, Sigourney Weaver's mother played Ripley's daughter. The special edition of Aliens, released in 1992 with 17 minutes of restored footage, includes a scene in which Ripley learns that her daughter Amy has died as an old woman while Ripley was in cryosleep. The scene is one of the most emotionally devastating in the franchise. The photograph of Amy as an elderly woman that Ripley is shown is a photograph of Sigourney Weaver's real mother, Elizabeth Inglis. Cameron had cast her in the role. The scene was cut from the theatrical release, a decision that reportedly frustrated Weaver significantly, as the maternal loss it established gives the Newt relationship its full emotional weight. Fox reportedly used the restoration of this scene as leverage to bring Weaver back for Alien 3. The woman playing Ripley's dead daughter on screen was the mother of the woman playing Ripley. The photograph that broke Ripley was a family portrait. Fact 1, Cameron's farewell speech was one of the most savage exits in Hollywood history. On the final day of the 10-month Pinewood shoot, after the tea break battles, the firing of the cinematographer, the replacement of Hicks, the culture clash that ran every single day of production, James Cameron stood in front of the full assembled cast and crew. Everyone expected an emotional farewell. He thanked them. He acknowledged the difficulties. He said the shoot had been long and hard, fraught with problems. He said the one thing that had kept him going through all of it was the absolute certainty that one day he would drive out the gate of Pinewood Studios and never come back. And that every sorry bastard in that room would still be there. He delivered it straight and walked out. The crew that had dismissed him, challenged him, and refused his tea break schedule heard their send-off from a director who had spent 10 months waiting to say it. Aliens opened 3 months later. It was one of the most critically acclaimed science fiction films of the decade. Cameron never went back to Pinewood, a film built on garbage bags, SAS training, a farewell speech nobody saw coming, and a director who put a dollar sign in his pitch and delivered on every cent of it. Which fact hit you hardest? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe for more deep dives into the sequels that surpassed everything before them. Until next time,